shows us that it wasn't, and it hasn't been that way.
But it is, I just conclude this real quick so we can get on to some other questions. It's false. I completely think it's a false notion, but it is the dominant story of America, and so and the consciousness, and there's a lot of people who have a vested interest in people not thinking beyond a cliche version of it. And I guess I would say with regard to human rights, I always find that language is a little problematic because Second Amendment people will claim human rights to bear arms. I think it's more effective to talk in terms of human goods, of things that secure the goods of human flourishing, and because that has a little bit more of a social dimension. Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Good point.
You got one here?
This question is geared towards Mr. Reed, Mr. Wiles, and the Senator. Do you feel that the path to universal health care in this country has been stymied because things just didn't align right? I mean, Mr. Reed, you mentioned in Canada they had, who was the premier of Saskatchewan?
Tommy Douglas.
Tommy Douglas, yeah. He was voted the best Canadian
Of all time.
of all time. He even beat out Wayne Gretzky. But do you feel that, things just the stars haven't really aligned?
Well, nobody designed our system, and nobody would have designed our system. It just sort of happened over the decades. And we ended up with a system where some people are huge winners in our current system. There's enormous money. It's the biggest single industry we've got. 1 out of every $6 we spend is healthcare. And some organizations and industries are winning hugely, and therefore they fight change. So we kind of stumbled into this. Nobody designed it. And now we're kind of stuck with it. It's resistant to change because there's so much money in the current way of doing things.
All right, we're going to take about another 10 minutes. If anybody needs to go, feel free to. It is 8 o'clock, which is about the time we planned on stopping. I do want to point out also, Paula was kind enough, gracious enough to introduce a couple of candidates in the room, and we do have a third candidate in the room now. Oh, is that Lance? Yeah. Yes. Lance Wright here, who's also a candidate for House District 2. So we're well represented here. But I was looking at some, Bob.
I don't completely agree with the argument that says health care is a human right. Yes, it is morally, but there's a lot of people that say, well, I brought myself up by the bootstraps, and they can too. Okay, so what I'm more interested in is comparing what we have in the United States versus the rest of the world. And the organization OECD gives us the numbers that says we are not twice as expensive as everybody else, but at least 50% more expensive than the next country, and we're twice as expensive as Japan. Okay, but the OECD gives us legitimate numbers, and if our government, the White House, the administration, would publish, summaries of this kind of information for the public, then they could see, how we compare. We're not number 1. We're not number 5. We're not number 10. We're not number 15 in health care.
The 30s.
Yeah. So, well, okay, whatever the numbers are, we're definitely not number 1.
But does it? I wrote a book about it. It's a best-selling book. I made 2 movies for PBS Frontline saying exactly what you just said.
Okay.
Broadcast right during the debate on Obamacare, and look what we got. So.
Well, the insurance companies are going to win.
So, Bob, one of the things that I heard and read, and Pierre could probably validate this, is that one of the problems with Democrats is that they think that everybody makes decisions based on reason, and that if you give them enough facts, that you'll convince them.
No, I understand.
And that isn't true. And I
Shame.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I had a call maybe 2 years ago at the end of a session by someone who said they were a research firm. And they said to me, what could we do research on that would help you as a legislator get a policy through? And I said, well, what you could research for me is, what does the majority leader want to see happen next year? Because that's what would help me get a policy through. Our political system, at least, is not based on reason.
No, I
It's
understand.
based on who has the loudest voice. And when 20% of your economy is in healthcare, they have a very loud voice.
Winston Churchill supposedly said that Americans will always do the right thing, but only after trying everything else first.
Winston Churchill, I think, said that.
I'm gonna get over here, but let me get over here first. Ed?
Well, Ed Hawley from the neighborhood here, and I happened to watch ABC News tonight when there was another challenge to the Affordable Care Act because people were going to be losing their jobs, and somebody then responded by going back to Massachusetts and what we never seem to call Romney Care, and said that over the 6 or 8 years now that's been enforced, or 10, that nobody's lost any jobs. Why don't we find some Republicans who are willing to look at what a Republican governor did in Massachusetts?
Good luck.
Well, those were facts, and facts don't
Well,
communicate.
even the Republican governor of Massachusetts wouldn't run on it. He ran away from it, unfortunately.
So we had, I had this little bill the other day, and all it did was align our statute with what we're doing in Medicaid. And usually on third reading, everybody just votes, but Senator Owen Hill, who not coincidentally happens to be running for US Senate, comes up and unfolds his paper and he reads through, you know, all this stuff about why we shouldn't vote for this bill, and he says, you know, people think that rate Congress at 8% lower than blah, 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 and this is why, that we have the chance now to lower it to 6 if we vote for this bill. Let's fix it. And I got up and I said, Senator Hill, they rate us at 8% because people like you continue to rant about the Affordable Care Act, which was upheld by the Supreme Court and led to the re-election of our president. And it was like silence. Because that's exactly right. I mean, we need to wait and call politicians on this and not let them get away with it. You know, call a spade when you have the opportunity.
Okay, we're gonna finish with some rapid fire ones here, and we've got one there, 2 here, and 1 up front. So, quick questions and quick answers to finish up here.
Hi, I'm a recent transplant from North Carolina where I went onto the exchange and I had 2 carriers to choose from. So purchasing, which I did, my insurance here was a bit overwhelming. And it made me really wonder about the business perspective of things. We've talked about, you know, healthcare is a big business, it has a big voice. So if I were an insurer, I would want to be listening really hard to what my customers want. And since we don't have any insurers on the panel, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about what do the customers actually want? Like people that are buying things, people that are asking for change, what do we want?
That's such a great question. And so we are just in the beginning stages of collecting that information, right? I mean, we've been open for 3 months and we're really trying to, we have a customer satisfaction survey that just deployed and we're going to be asking questions about what your experience was. We're also going to do more longitudinal studies in terms of, okay, now that you have your insurance, how is it going, right? And part of, believe it or not, even though we're just in the initial open enrollment period, we're already focused on a retention strategy for next year, because we want people to be happy and come back to us as customers, and then build and grow and build and grow. So I think we're going to collect that information. I mean, what we're hearing right now, honestly, is I'm confused, I need to know how to navigate this product, and I'm looking at my choices and I need help. They're not even talking yet about, at least from my experience, they're not really talking yet about the experience with health insurance in the healthcare system, but that's to come. And so I think, you know, I'm trying to broker in our reality in the state right now, which is we're at this very beginning stage of an amazingly, I think, awesome experiment that we need to play out over time. And I think it's our opportunity, to your point, to start to garner that consumer information and push it back out to say, we want to deliver to the consumer what they really want. And I think that's the power of this marketplace, is that over time, if we build our capacity and the people that enroll with us, we can start to hear that consumer voice more and more and start to deliver more of what they need and want. So I believe in that, and I think that if there's more support for the exchange over time, we can really get there. But it's going to take some time.
And I will speak as a consumer, and that's part of the reason why I'm on the exchange board. And as a patient and family, I've got a son with a chronic illness. Many of you know that. His medications, his bills are $1 million or more a year, and he's 10 years old. So, and we're in the hospital. We've probably been in the hospital maybe 100 times since he's been born. He's doing well. He's back at school. He's doing great. But as a consumer, what all the problems we've ever had have never been, well, I won't say never. I'll say 95% of our problems has been with the insurance. We've always been fully covered. But all of our problems have come back to paying the claims, getting claims done correctly, getting things covered that need to be covered. And that's, that's, as a consumer, that's always been our problem, and that's why I've always been a strong proponent of a public finance healthcare system to get the insurance out of the middle. And I also grew up in North Carolina, go Heels. So,
And,
probably Duke State.
finishing up here, with our three last ones, and to quote Peyton Manning, hurry, hurry! Okay.
Omaha.
In terms of a free market, I think instead of a choice of insurance, I think people want a choice of providers. And I would say we should be calling the Republicans' bluff and say, we could have $400 billion deficit reduction every year with Medicare for all. I mean, we need to be framing that issue.
Anybody want to respond, or is that?
I also think we need to say, before you cut Medicare, do bulk negotiation for pharmaceutical prices.
Yes, exactly. All right, we had one in the back.
This is an exhausting fight, and I would want to just thank the panelists and Owen Perkins for spending the evening here, and to everyone who came to play tonight. My question is about next steps. I'm intrigued by the models that we talked about, and in particular, there's, as I understand it, Maryland, the state of Maryland, has done some amazing things to allow for the cost of a service to be paid the same, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, or commercial insurance. So what are the obstacles? I mean, that's a great way to work toward universal coverage, because you get one price, basically. What are the obstacles? What can we look for, to participate in this fight as consumers and citizens?
The biggest obstacle is the illusion of a free market, and that we are asking for proprietary business information. Now, the biggest move we have going in our favor is our all-payer claims database. And as more of that becomes known and published, that will help drive prices. Interestingly, Connect for Health has also helped, because people didn't used to know that you could buy the exact same plan in Denver for 30% less than what you pay in Fort Collins and 80% less than what you pay in Grand Junction, and that's pissing people off. So that's the start of the movement.
All right, and we're going to go to the front here, and I do want to give you a heads up. I want to give you a chance for 30 seconds